Okay, no. Who keeps taking the last penny out of the community change pot?
I don't know. It's probably a customer paying for a rental. It's for everyone.
Well, whoever is working register has to make sure there's always at least 1 penny in there, no matter what.
Does this have something to do with that theory of yours about the so-called god of gratuity?
It's not a god, and it's not my theory.
Do you have a book of rules? Been going to meetings once a week, perhaps?
I've been to a couple meetings.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, midnight movies, matinees.
Hell yeah.
Rob, by now our customers are pretty accustomed to something they hear at the end of just about every episode.
I'm probably getting tired of it.
Yeah. Well, they're asking questions, and the 2 words that close out every discussion about the staff recommendation shelf is the phrase, "Hail Satan."
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this
I hadn't noticed.
Right, I know.
Wonder where it's coming from.
Yeah, well, it is a trend that started way back following our Hail Satan episode back in, was it 2022?
Hail Satan.
Yeah, Hail Satan. Now, as far as I know, neither of us are actually members of the Church of Satan.
No comment.
No comment. Either way, there are a lot of folks in this country who are indeed religious. And accordingly, we've got quite a few movies in the store that tell stories about faith and religion. And those movies deserve some attention too, goddammit. You and I are in charge of the staff recommendation shelf here at Rewind Video. And each time we update this shelf with new movies, we adhere to a theme. This week's theme is the topic of religion.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Praise be. So this was mine, right? Did I choose this?
Yeah, this is your choice.
Yeah. So I figured, everyone's got some connection to religion in some way, shape, or form.
Way.
Yeah. Even if you're not attached to a certain faith, you certainly have an opinion about religion.
It seems like everybody does.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty complicated topic and one that people feel pretty passionately about. And not surprisingly, we have movies that deal in religion in just about every section of the store. We're going to highlight a few of them tonight, but it ends up making for some pretty interesting stories. I found myself gravitating toward movies where people are challenged by religion a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that makes for at least a more relatable story to me, but that's not all you get when it comes to this topic.
It encompasses a lot of life. A lot can happen within the confines of religion, or sometimes you find yourself caught in religion in the course of your life. Yeah. I'm not religious. I don't believe in a God, but, so I'm not like a fan of religion per se, but I try not to be condescending about it. There's a lot of people who are quick to congratulate themselves for not being religious or not believing in God. It's why I can never be an atheist. It's too much of a commitment. Too many rules, too many beliefs.
I actually agree with you. And I've had this discussion with a lot of people where I've met atheists who are as devout to that belief as some of the most obsessive Catholics and Christians that I've met in the world. And it's like, you guys have your camps. I'm
right.
Just going to abstain.
Because it's you could. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is about the atheists that bother me so much. But there's a smugness about it.
Yes.
There's just something about it that rubs me the wrong way. I think they're basically right, but just I don't like the way they go about it.
Yeah, act like you've been there.
Yeah. But I think religion, or I think churches can be good for things, good for building community and helping people who need it. I think there's a lot of good stuff that happens. It's when they get to the point where like, well, you got to believe that the stuff in this book actually happened. That's where you lose me.
Indeed. I was delighted when I saw our 6 movies to see that both of us managed to steer clear of films that exclusively dealt in Christianity, which is where you get a lot of movies that have a religious theme of some sort. But yeah, there are other stories to tell, and we're going to get into a couple of those tonight, which is good.
Yes, that is a good thing.
There are other religions.
Sample other religions that we don't buy into.
Right, yeah. We reject those too, yeah. But I mean, you do you.
Yeah.
Well, with all of that said, I'm excited to talk about your first film, so why don't you kick us off?
Let's get into it. I am starting us off in 2011 with the movie Red State by Kevin Smith. This is filed under Locks in Flavor, Locks Air Out. Here's the back of the box. Set in Middle America, a group of teens receive an online invitation for sex, though they soon encounter Christian fundamentalists with a much more sinister agenda. Tagline, Fear God.
Oh,
good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah, it's appropriate for this week.
Yeah.
So I think you had never seen this movie before, right?
No, at some point I fell off the Kevin Smith train. Yeah. And, it wasn't because I can't say why, but
I think I have some answers for you. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah. But this is from the stage in his career where I wasn't paying as close attention.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were.
Yeah.
So, so the question is, how did Kevin Smith come to this movie? Because it is not like anything he's ever made before. It doesn't look like anything he's done before. The camera moves.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't really know. It's hard to figure out why he didn't just let somebody do something with the camera before. But at least in this movie, he just let the DP do something different than just stationary shots. Right. This movie is not raunchy. It's not like his usual talky type of movie. So how did it even happen? Right. This doesn't make any sense that Kevin Smith would make this movie. But it was a very tumultuous time of his career. And it actually goes back to 2008-ish. Zack and Miri came out.
Yeah.
And that was kind of peak Seth Rogen. Right. He was coming off of Superbad and Knocked Up and Pineapple Express, and he was this huge comedy star.
Making a lot of money for a lot of studios.
Yeah, these movies are making tons of money. He's in all the Apatow stuff. And so now he's in a Kevin Smith movie, and Kevin Smith was like, this is when I break into the mainstream. This is when I make a hit.
Yeah.
Instead it did, as he says, Kevin Smith business, Right. Which, you call a movie Zack and Miri Make a Porno, you're immediately limiting your audience, which is it was a dumb move.
Perhaps, but from what I understand, the Weinsteins who bought this picture, bought it on the name alone. They were like, "This is going to be a hit. We've got something here. We don't need to read the script."
He'd made a bunch of movies for them before, and he'd made his career with them. And Seth Rogen was a huge star. It made a lot of sense,
right?
But so he was when this movie was coming out, or Zack and Miri was coming out, he was like, "This is it, and it's going to be this big hit," and it wasn't, Right. Probably made his money back or whatever. And so he went into this depressive funk and was basically nobody wants Kevin Smith movies anymore. This was Apatow took what I was doing and he's doing it so much better than me now. And those are popular and my movies aren't. What the fuck am I even doing?
Yeah.
And so he didn't work for a couple of months. He didn't even go on the internet. Basically was just at home smoking weed by himself. What the fuck am I going to do next? And he agreed to do a movie called Cop Out, which is based on a script called A Couple of Dicks, which is a well-known script that was on the blacklist, and it was supposed to be this great script that nobody wanted to make. And he had never made a movie from somebody else's script before, and hasn't done it since. So this was his chance to get back in the movie business and work with his idol, Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
And that movie was a complete disaster, a total bomb.
Yes.
It's terrible.
It is terrible.
It's just really bad.
It will not appear on the staff recommendation.
Yeah. So not only did it not jumpstart his career, it was a really miserable experience for him because Bruce Willis very early on in the process figured out that Kevin Smith really doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to directing movies. And we're big Kevin Smith fans. At least I am, especially his early career. Mm-hmm. But it's not because he's a good director. His movies have a lot of heart. They have a lot to say. They're very personal.
Yeah, very DIY.
Yeah. But he's not a good director. I don't think anybody would say that.
No.
Not even he would say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Willis basically sandbagged this production. He wouldn't even talk to Kevin Smith while it was going on. And so, like, he comes out of this movie out of Cop Out and was like, what the fuck now? Like, nobody wants Kevin Smith movies. Now nobody wants me directing other people's movies. Like, my career is, like, pointless. Even if I can get another job, it's pointless. And so he kind of went back to, like, just stripped it all down. He was like, I'm going to, like, basically get rid of my style. And he had written the script years before. But he was like, what is my Texas Chainsaw Massacre? What would that look like? And so that's kind of where he came from. And, you know, he's eventually gotten back to the View Askew universe since. He's made a couple more Jay and Silent Bob movies. And, you know, so he worked his way back.
Clerks film, yeah.
Yeah. But this movie really was like, you know, it was a catalyst for him, like, continuing to make movies, which he wasn't going to do, really. There wasn't even really a point. He's more of a podcaster now anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the Kevin Smith brand and personality seems like it's doing better for him than many of his films had. But, you know, I wouldn't say... I feel like there is truly nothing here that is trademark Kevin Smith, apart from maybe the fact that these guys at the beginning are, you know, out to have sex with somebody, and,
right?
You know, like, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe pick up a couple of lines of dialogue. You could be like, "That's a little wordy for, you know, that sounds like a little bit like Kevin Smith." But yeah, like, there's almost nothing here that would tell you that it is. It comes across to me as basically like a Shudder original movie with a really good cast.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
It's still very homemade. It's very low budget. This isn't Kevin Smith's only religious movie.
No.
He famously made Dogma.
Yeah.
Which is one of the few things that Harvey Weinstein owns personally.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that story. And boy, is it interesting.
Yeah. And Kevin Smith has tried to buy it back from him. And he's basically trying to negotiate. And Kevin Smith is like, it's not a negotiation. He's like, but he's kind of using it as a piece to, like, make it seem like he's still in the business.
Kevin Smith tells a great story about just all the details surrounding this and trying to reclaim it. Yeah. And it's worth watching for anyone who hasn't seen it, because I appreciate Smith's stance on not wanting to give Harvey Weinstein and not wanting to welcome him back into this industry whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's
like, doesn't want to give him the satisfaction. He's like, listen, one day he's either going to die or he's going to, like, needed to pay some, like, legal fees or whatever it is.
Right.
So, like, one day, like, hopefully he'll get the movie back. But going to Red State, I think my favorite part of the movie is Michael Parks.
Oh, he's so good.
Incredible in this.
Didn't Smith write this part with Parks in mind?
I think he did. Yeah. I mean, it seems like it is. I mean, like, the centerpiece of this movie is like a 10-minute sermon that he gives.
Yeah.
And it is so good. He's basically a Fred Phelps type pastor at this, like, violently anti-gay church.
Clearly inspired by Westboro Baptist Church. Yeah.
Like if they were gun nuts as well. They were like them plus, you know, Waco.
Right.
The rest of the cast is really good. Melissa Leo, John Goodman, Kevin Pollak shows up for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
He's like, whatever, like, he's in stuff. Like, he has like a 2-minute part in a movie like every 6 months, and that's it. Religiously, this really shows, like, you can see how the parishioners are drawn in by Michael Parks.
Yeah.
But you can also see how this religion can just be twisted into something really nasty.
Right. It's a slippery slope.
Because this is a Christian church.
Yep.
It's very different from a lot of Christian churches, but, like, these people believe their interpretation of the Bible. They think it's true. And as every church does. But this is, like, obviously a perversion of that. But this is, like, what religion can become.
Yeah, and we see it happening. I mean, it's fascinating how, in spite of the fact that, like, the Westboro Baptist Church is not in the news as much as it was back in the day, there are a lot of churches and a lot of Christians who have distorted their perception of faith in ways that just suit whatever their beliefs are. Yeah. And I think that this movie was a little bit ahead of its time in terms of anticipating where we are today.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not any less relevant.
Right.
Maybe more so. I mean, like, the specific issues are maybe not the same issues we have now, but yeah, I mean, it all rings fairly true. Even like the use of, like, government power against it and stuff makes a lot of sense. I give this movie 4 stars. I think it's just interesting enough that, and it's short. It's 88 minutes. It's super watchable. It's a lot of fun. It's got like great performances, not just Michael Parks.
Stephen Root. He's
oh yeah, Stephen Root. Yeah. I found a Letterboxd user named Katie Mackey that said, "Pesky violent Christians are my favorite genre. Is this the Supreme Court?" And that was her 4-star review. So yeah, I'm putting Red State by Kevin Smith up on the staff recommendation shelf this week for Religion.
This was fun. I had not seen this, and had I not known, I wouldn't have guessed that this was a Kevin Smith movie. So I would say to anyone who has an opinion about him, especially if it's not a necessarily positive opinion about Kevin Smith's films, this is worth giving a shot because you get something pretty different. I wanted to ask you if you had seen the animated version of the ending that Kevin Smith wanted to shoot for this.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
So I guess it was part of a series that Entertainment Weekly was doing for a while, where they brought to life scenes from movies that weren't shot. And with this film, they invited Kevin Smith to get the ending he wanted in mind animated. So I won't spoil it. I would say it does. Had the movie ended this way, it would have felt maybe a little bit more like a Kevin Smith movie than it does now.
Yeah, but I have heard of what the ending was supposed to be in the original script. I don't know if that would have worked. I don't know. It's a little weird.
It is a little weird, but this is good. I was glad to finally add it to my list. There's still some Kevin Smith movies that I haven't seen. I haven't seen Tusk.
You know what? I haven't either, and that has kind of started to become like an underground, like weirdo hit. Yeah. So I want to go back to that. He made a couple movies that I maybe don't want to. I mean, he seems to be repeating himself, but on a certain level, it's like I'm okay with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great first pick. I am taking us to 1995. We're going to the soul food section of the store for my first pick, and my movie is The Prophecy. Back of the box synopsis: a chilling supernatural tale of heavenly war waged on Earth by a legion of renegade angels. Angels come to Earth to find a human soul that can end the war in heaven. Humans are caught up in this battle and must find a way to stop the angel Gabriel before he takes the soul back from where the angel Simon has hidden it. A little bit of a convoluted back of the box there, but...
Yeah.
Right. Tagline: on ancient ground at the edge of the world, an evil born in heaven is about to be unleashed on Earth. Sounds big.
That's a long tagline.
It is. I would say the back of the box and the tagline are missing the mark a little bit. But this is the type of movie that tips you off on what to expect before the film actually begins. So you hit play, and that Dimension Films logo pops up on the screen. Dimension was formed in 1992. The first movie they released was Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. And from there, they kind of specialized in horror, sci-fi films of a certain ilk. So on the list of movies that Dimension brought us, we've got The Crow, From Dusk Till Dawn, some Children of the Corn sequels, some Halloween sequels. They also brought us Scream.
Yeah.
Now,
so just pure bangers is what you're saying.
Yeah,
pure 90s bangers.
Yeah, there were definitely some hits. Maybe a couple misses, but I'm not going to try to put The Prophecy on the same level as Scream. In fact, it's probably got more in common with a lot of the lazy sequels that the studio put out. But The Prophecy definitely holds a special place for me. I kind of grew up with it.
Yeah.
This is the type of horror movie that I love. So it's religious horror, specifically not exorcism horror. I'm not a fan of exorcism horror unless Large Russ is involved.
Yeah, Large Russ is in the game.
It's generally just lazy to me. Most of the exorcism stories I see are the same. But here we get a story about a holy war waged between angels. And a few of these wacky angels are down on Earth gathering ammunition.
Yep.
Right?
Is that what's going on? They're going looking for generals.
They're looking for generals.
Yeah, they're looking for bodies that are, soul bodies.
Yeah, conducting something of a draft. It's almost hard to call this horror, though. In fact, these are the categories that IMDb uses to classify The Prophecy: action, crime, drama, fantasy, horror, mystery, thriller.
Fair.
I'd argue that it dabbles in just about all of those a little bit, you know? True of most Dimension films, this is the type of thing that kind of stumbled into and then out of theaters pretty quickly, but it found its audience on cable. That's where I saw it. Yeah. What's crazy?
Aren't there like 4 sequels?
There's 4 sequels. There's 5 prophecy films. Only 3 of them give us Christopher Walken.
Okay.
And that leads me to my next point, which is that for what is essentially a B-plus movie, it's got mostly an A-list cast. There's Virginia Madsen's here, Christopher Walken, Eric Stoltz, Elias Koteas, and a fucking wonderful Viggo Mortensen.
I wish Christopher Walken had been allowed to cook a little more in this. I think this is before he was like an icon. And so I think if you make this movie now, you're just like, do whatever the fuck you want, Chris.
Yes. But I think this, he had... Well, okay, let me give you a hot take.
Okay.
And this is the first reason that I chose this film. So if he were alive to confirm it, I wouldn't be shocked if Heath Ledger based his Joker performance a little bit on what Christopher Walken is doing in this movie.
That is a wild take.
Yeah. But
I didn't see that at all.
Oh, I definitely see it. There's just some, I mean, even with things like when he wakes up that terminally ill patient at the hospital and she kind of comes to just after having died and he's like, hi. Just stuff like that, which, kind of mirrors something that we see Heath Ledger do. There's some other things where he's just engaging with characters and it's a little bit deranged, but it's also very like driven toward.
He has some really good moments.
He does.
Yeah, I mean, he's still Christopher Walken.
I don't disagree with you. It would have been nice to have seen.
Like I want to see it at 11.
Yeah.
I feel like he's at like 8.5.
I agree.
8.5. I want to see 11 or 12.
It's interesting because this comes on the heels of some pretty great Walken performances. He had just been in Pulp Fiction. Before that, Wayne's World 2 and True Romance. I don't disagree. This could be more Walken than it is, but I think he's still doing something that's flirting with the off the wall guy that we've come to kind of love.
Yeah, I don't think he can help it.
Yeah, no, it's who he is. But in addition to Christopher Walken, we also get a straight up wacky role for Viggo Mortensen. So he plays Satan. He's got a little goblin that keeps him company. He's appropriately cunning, surprising every time he shows up, and it's pretty great. As mentioned at the top of the episode, we're kind of experts on Satan.
kind of.
Yeah, we've talked about him before, and I think this is a pretty good take on the character.
I gotta say, I wasn't totally sure what was happening in this movie. This is my first time seeing it. I know you grew up with it. Mm-hmm. It almost seemed like I was supposed to know stuff about the Bible or something. I was like, I don't know who these. They're like, it's Gabriel. I'm like, who? Who are you talking about?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if that was me or if it's the movie's fault. I'm not really sure.
No, it's not you. It is the movie's fault.
Okay.
I mean, it's an ambitious story, and it definitely I think it benefits from some background on the Bible and all things Christianity, but it's still missing the mark in terms of telling a complete narrative,
a coherent story.
Yeah. But what I do like about this, and this isn't the last time that I'll talk about this tonight, is that this is tackling the topic of faith in, I think, in a little bit more of an ambitious way than most movies. It's flirting with this idea of crisis of faith, which affects the detective who is a former priest at the center of this story. Mm-hmm. It also affects the angel of Gabriel. He's somebody who has fallen out of favor with God and whatnot. Yeah. I like that theme. I find it relatable, and I think this movie at least approaches it in an unexpected way.
Looking at our movies, I believe this is the only one that posits that the religion is real. Everything else is just a religion, but like in this movie, like we get to like, I don't know, Satan's here, there's angels are coming to Earth, you know.
Yeah, there's some consequences if you make some bad decisions. Yeah. Right.
So like how can you have a crisis of faith when you know God's real? You know?
Right. That's true. Good point. I've been thinking about your comment around bringing a midnight movie to the shelf each week. And while I think that the prophecy takes itself a little bit too seriously in order to fit into that category, I do feel that it's best suited for a late night watch where you're looking for more of a weird ride than a critical think piece.
Oh yeah. This is a watch with a crowd type of movie. Don't try to figure out what's going on because the movie doesn't tell you.
No, just enjoy the time you get with Christopher Walken and Viggo Mortensen. This averages a 3.0 on Letterboxd, and if I was coming at this fresh, I think that's exactly where it belongs. I do have, as I mentioned, some sentimental attachment to it. But yeah, only 18% of Letterboxd users align with my 3.5 star rating. As you called out, there are 4 sequels to this. I can assure all of our customers that your relationship with the prophecy can end as soon as the credits in the first movie roll. I
don't know that I want to stop. I mean, if Walken's in 2 more of these, I should probably watch the other 2.
I mean, for that reason, I would, but give him a shot. But he's only in the next 2, so I'll leave you with one review that I enjoyed by Letterboxd user Sydney, who said, "Cinema has a lot of perfect moments, magic that lasts for minutes or hours." Or in this case, the blink of an eye in which Viggo Mortensen licks Christopher Walken's forehead. So there you go. Prophecy's going up on the shelf.
That's a good choice. So yeah, it's not a perfect movie, but it's one you have to see.
Yeah.
If you're in a 90s horror.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take us to the 70s.
Oh boy.
This movie is called The Wicker Man.
Boy, a lot of horror-ish things on the shelf so far.
Horror-ish, yeah. But you know what? This is, I think, like Red State, this is kind of light horror.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe like the 2 of them together are like a full horror movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not super horror-y, but this is in the barbecue section of the store. Here's the back of the box. Police Sergeant Neil Howie is called to an island village in search of a missing girl whom the locals claim never existed. Stranger still, however, are the rituals that take place there. Here's the tagline. Flesh to touch, flesh to burn. Don't keep the Wicker Man waiting.
Some spoilers there.
A little bit, yeah. Also, I guess people had longer attention spans back then for full sentence taglines.
That's probably true. Yeah. That's probably true.
So, I mean, I think most people know The Wicker Man as the Nicolas Cage movie from, I think, about 2005-ish or something.
Yeah, that's
sad. The Bees movie.
The Bees.
This is the original, and this one's much, much better.
It is.
Here we have a cop who has come to a Scottish island by himself to investigate a reported missing child. And he keeps getting the runaround. First, it seems like this girl doesn't exist. He's taking the picture around going like, have you seen her? Like, someone gave us an anonymous tip and said she's missing. And everyone's like, we've never seen this girl in our life. And then
they're playing a little coy about it.
Yeah, they're like, well, yeah, whatever. Like, some people go missing sometimes. Right. Like, we don't know. We've never seen her before, but like, maybe. I don't know. Right. But then it turns out that like maybe she does exist and she died a long time ago and they buried her.
Yeah.
What is obvious is that the people on this island are not interested in cooperating whatsoever. No. Whatever it is this cop is doing, they're like, well, no, we don't know.
Cooperation, no. Funny pranks, yes.
Yes. But, tight-knit communities are always creepy to outsiders, and they're usually hostile to authority figures like cops.
Right.
But, like, especially communities that are like based in belief or religion, like they are very hostile to outsiders. They don't want anybody like getting messed in their business. And this community is pretty strange. Even at first, like they break out in song at strange times.
Yeah.
They have public group sex.
Yeah, they may or may not be wearing clothes.
Yeah. I mean, not group sexes, and it's like they break into duos and then in a field.
Right.
They worship trees, it seems like. They have dances that involve worshiping trees. So slowly this police officer comes to realize that like they're not just like rituals, they aren't just like community traditions. This is like they're actually pagans.
Right.
And this is especially worrisome to him because Great Britain, the United Kingdom, is like officially a Christian nation, which is weird for us to think about here in this country. Because like England does have freedom of religion. Like you can be whatever religion you want by law, but the Church of England is the established church of the country.
Yes.
The king or the queen is the head of that church. Now, the king or the queen doesn't necessarily have a lot of political power per se, but I don't know if you knew this, but 20 of like the most senior bishops of the Church of England get a seat in Parliament.
Oh, I did not know that. What an interesting bit of trivia.
That is an absolute nightmare.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine the horror show it would be if like we let like the top 20 Catholics into Congress? Like, can you imagine?
I feel like we've inversely allowed the bottom 20 Catholics into Congress.
Good point. But they wouldn't get replaced. That's the problem. It would just be whoever we elect to Congress plus 20 bishops. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
That's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't even imagine what that's, I mean, yeah, it blows my mind. But I do, what I love about this movie is, you know how I feel about music in movies. And this is, this is an instance of music in a movie that, it's not necessarily about the music. There's like maybe one or two good songs at best.
Yeah, there's one or two songs.
There are several songs.
Yeah.
But it's not really like this movie isn't really, I mean, it's a musical. But the songs are really like disarming. You know, it's a form of sorcery.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
it's not about performing these songs for the audience of the movie.
Right.
And of course, like some of them are enhanced by nudity. They need a lot of nudity. The first song, the one where they're all drinking in the pub, you know, that one's a ton of fun. The innkeeper's daughter. And like that to me is like, if you're on an island in Scotland, I would 100% expect to walk in and have people singing a song like that, you know, raising their pints and going, bah, 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 you know.
I feel like you coined perhaps a better tagline for this film with just music enhanced by nudity.
Yeah, I mean, if it sticks, like, I mean,
yeah, why not?
So this island, it just seems like it's filled with peaceful, happy people, but we know there's something fucked up going on here.
Yes,
but it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on.
We know that before it seems that the detective does.
Yes, he is clueless. He is fucking clueless.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like the songs and like the strange customs, the behavior they're all doing, the nudity. I mean, it all kind of gets our guard down. Mm-hmm. You know, we're just like, yeah, of course they're acting weird. Like,
but it doesn't seem threatening. It's
not threatening. Yeah, they're like they didn't recognize the girl in this picture. Like they're just weird people on this island.
Right.
They don't have a lot of, you know what I mean?
They're clearly concerned with other things.
Also, yeah, and also like they just don't want to talk to me because I'm a cop from the mainland. Right. They're not really up to some crazy stuff. Until he figures out that they're pagans, and he's like, "This is out of control. They don't know about Jesus." Yeah. That's like a bridge too far.
Yeah.
I think this might be one of the only movies that I can think of that features a jar of foreskins.
Well, I haven't seen another one.
Yeah, it did recall the part in Action Jackson with jars of that Craig T. Nelson keeps his enemies' balls in.
I would not have guessed that we would be talking about Action Jackson in connection with the Wicker Man, but here we are.
I was so happy. Yeah, R.I.P. Carl Weathers.
Right, yes.
I give this movie 4 stars. I think it's a ton of fun. I think it's just a weird movie. Like, you know, it's not. It's like classic folk horror.
It is. It definitely paved the way for a lot of... I mean, folk horror is having something of a renaissance with movies like Midsommar and The Ritual and stuff like that. But yeah, this was definitely a landmark in that genre.
I found another 4-star review of this movie that matches my own. It's by Letterboxd user Owen. His review is, honestly, these are some pretty chill cultists apart from that one thing.
Oh, accurate. Yeah. That's good.
So yeah, this is going up on the shelf for religion.
This is not a short film. We get Christopher Lee, who's fucking great. We haven't really talked about him. He's so good. And I would say that in spite of its age and how different it is pacing-wise and just tonally just separate from where we are today, this movie rewards some rewatches.
I think so, yeah, because like I said, it is a little bit disarming. Like, you don't even realize really what's happening because, like, while terrible things are happening, you have people like singing happy songs and doing dances and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, where's their heads at? Because it seems like this is a happy thing.
Right. And, I think you spend a lot of time probably on the first viewing putting yourself in the shoes of the detective. But once you know what's going on here, you start to pick up on exactly what these townspeople are doing to him. And it's fascinating. So lots to appreciate here. It's a good movie.
Definitely. Burn, baby, burn.
Burn, baby, burn. Speaking of babies, I'm going to take us in a different direction, away from horror.
Babies.
And my next film is called Shiva Baby. It's from 2020. It's from the Why Are Babies Allowed Anywhere section of the store. The back of the box. Stuck in post-grad ennui, Danielle is fine living off of her sugar daddy Max and lying to her family about her revenue source. But her worlds clash at a Shiva with her parents, where she faces the wrath of her ex Maya and the arrival of Max and his wife. When tense conversations threaten to expose her secrets, Danielle must escape before the passive aggression in the house becomes all too aggressive. Tagline, death, family style. I think that's cute, but I don't think that
This movie's not about family per se.
I don't even think it's about death.
You're right. Yeah, but I can see that. Yeah, you got to see how you could work death in here because it's a Shiva.
Sure. Rob, how much did you love the runtime of this selection? It's a downright brisk 78 minutes.
I mean, such a huge fan. Such a huge fan of short movies. I mean, I think all of our movies so far have been less than 90 minutes.
Yeah.
78 minutes. And now, honestly, I got to say, it's the perfect length for this movie.
Oh, my God. Yeah. In fact, I mean, like,
there's even a little bit of padding in there.
A lot does happen in these 78 minutes. I would say that by the time the credits roll, I could see a lot of viewers feeling grateful that the end of the film has finally arrived.
Yes. Not a lot gets resolved, but you're just like, please just end this.
Can we please be done? And that isn't because it's not that this isn't a fun watch, but all 78 of those minutes are stressful for our main character,
the awkwardness
Danielle.
Is the point.
Yeah. So Danielle is played by Rachel Sennett. Molly Gordon is also here throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. As the back of the box indicates, Danielle is attending a Shiva. And for those who are unfamiliar, this is a Jewish ritual where family gathers following a funeral. A Shiva is technically a 7-day period of mourning, but it begins with something akin to a wake. And that's where we're at. So separate from attending the Shiva, Danielle is also a sugar baby. So hence the title, Shiva Baby, or Shiva Baby, Sugar Baby. There's a little bit of a connection. So this movie unfolds in practically real time while Danielle is at this event. She's surrounded by family, engaged in some very uncomfortable conversations, and finding that the image of herself that she wants to perpetuate is falling apart with every new person that she engages with.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I haven't been like necessarily in her position,
No.
as far as like what's going on in her life while this is going on. But like, I felt those like awkward moments of like going to a thing with like family that you have to talk to and like you don't know that well and like they don't know where you're at and you got to like say something and like I felt all those moments in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of anyone who understands the anxiety of small talk is gonna.
It's like that with a microscope on
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this is a coming of age story. It's an LGBTQ story. It's also a story about Jewish identity. And when all of those things converge, it really creates the perfect storm of anxiety. This was directed by Emma Seligman, who is an under 30 director who only has a few films to her name. Her most recent movie was the comedy Bottoms, also starring Rachel Sennett. So if you read any reviews of Shiva Baby, or just even like poke around on the internet, you're going to see a lot of people calling this a horror movie. This director had...
Wait, what?
A horror movie.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. This director had no experience directing horror, but when working with the composer for this, she kept choosing these music samples that were rooted in like strings plucking and this abstract chaos. And the composer was like, "Oh, you want a horror movie score for this?"
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
a little bit, yeah, but it doesn't make the movie a horror
No,
movie.
It doesn't make the movie a horror movie. I think that it's an anxiety movie in the same way that Uncut Gems is an anxiety movie.
Yeah, just also not a horror movie.
Not a horror movie, no. I mean, I think the closest you can get is like saying that the experience of being in this situation might be horrifying for some people, but still not a horror movie. So why did I choose this? Lots of reasons. But I'll start with our connection to the theme, because at a glance, it might seem like there's only a loose connection to religion here, but Jewish culture, Jewish identity, and quite literally the Jewish tradition of a Shiva are very much integral to this story. It's tied to the Jewish experience, and so much of what makes this compelling is the dynamic of this Jewish family as they engage with each other. This story doesn't work if it's a Christian family at a wake.
Right.
It's a very Jewish film.
I've always been fascinated by Judaism the most out of maybe all the religions, because it's so cultural.
Yes.
And also because, I don't know, there's a thing about it that's like, well, this is what we do. And like, if you don't believe that God is real, like, that doesn't matter. Like, this is what we do, and that's what makes us Jewish. And it's almost like not that like they're like, yeah, whatever, who cares if God is real, but like you can almost be like, I don't believe in God, and they're like, yeah, that's inconsequential, you know? Like, cool. Yeah, you still got to do these things because that's what we do. Yeah. Period. And like I really respect that.
I do too. Yeah. I think it's just an interesting cultural phenomenon,
right?
And can't knock it. It's so different from how Christians behave when it comes to their attachment.
It's like
religion.
the opposite, you know.
It is.
It's almost just, they're just like, listen, this is what keeps us together, but all these traditions and stuff.
So I think this is also a really believable coming of age story. Believable in the sense that this young woman. The way that she engages with people, the decisions that she makes are all very true to her age. She's clumsy. She hasn't thought everything through. The way she interacts with her ex, it's all authentically awkward. And the dialogue is really well written for people of this age. I also love the way this film handles bisexuality and especially sex work. You know, it's treated with grace. The director has gone on record to say that she's tired of stories where sexuality is the conflict of the movie. And here it's just kind of part of who Danielle is. Sex work and sexuality aren't the center of attention. They just inform who this person is, which is great. It's refreshing. We've talked already about the horror connection. I think there's some style choices here that overlap with some horror tropes. Just even with the filmmaking, it's claustrophobic.
Yeah, but I think they're kind of going for some comedy beats more than horror beats.
Oh, yeah,
a lot of it.
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's also very funny at times. It's also a touching movie. People shouldn't feel intimidated at all by online comparisons to the horror genre, because at the end of the day, this is something pretty different.
Yeah, definitely.
It averages a 3.9 on Letterboxd. I fucking love this film. I want more people to see it. 30% or 37% of Letterboxd users agree with my 4-star review, but I could easily see this becoming a 5-star film after future rewatches. I've already been through these 78 minutes a couple times, and I'm excited to go back. So
I think it's a rewatch. It's a rewatch movie, especially at the 78 minutes. I mean,
why not?
But yeah, I think some of the comedy is like buried a little bit.
It is,
and I think maybe on rewatch that will come out.
Yeah,
as it as you watch it over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, let's go to 1992.
Oh boy, I was there.
The movie is Sister Act. You can find this filed under Good Habits. Here's the back of the box. A Reno singer witnesses a mob murder and the cops stash her in a nunnery to protect her from the mob's hitmen. The Mother Superior does not trust her and takes steps to limit her influence on the other nuns. Eventually, the singer rescues the failing choir and begins helping with community projects, which gets her an interview on TV and identification by the mob. That's not true. That's not how they find her.
No. These lazy back of the box
lazy
writers again.
Back of the box.
Yeah.
Tagline: no booze, no sex, no drugs, no way. That's also bad. That's not the fundamental conflict here.
That's not why we're in it.
She's not like, well, I can't have booze. Like, she never mentions booze.
No.
I mean, maybe once. I don't know. But I think we all know what Sister Act is. It's the Whoopi Goldberg as a singing nun movie.
How could you not be aware of Sister Act when you were alive at this time in cinema?
Which we were. We were at 100% alive. Yeah. I think ultimately this movie is a box checker. It's an itch scratcher for me. There are certain things that I'm looking for from movies at certain times.
Right.
And this is like one of those movies that like gives you one of those things or some of those things at certain times.
Well, if you're looking for music that is not enhanced by nudity, you get it here.
No nudity.
No nudity.
It is a Disney movie.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, there's a likable cast for one thing. You have Maggie Smith, Harvey Keitel, Bill Nunn, who's great. Kathy Najimy in like the one role you'd ever know her from, I think.
Yeah.
But I will admit to always being a Whoopi fan.
Well, I mean, so I don't know. Whoopi was one of those actors at a time, for a short period of time, that just had, I don't know. You could put her on the front of a box.
Yes.
And it would move. It would move rentals. It would get people into the theater seats.
If you look at her filmography, like she's done very few movies.
She has.
And even back in this era, which you think of like when she was a star, like she doesn't do that many movies. Like she had a couple.
It's kind of curious how she rose to stardom to the level that she did. Because like even the front of this box says Whoopi bigger than Sister Act. I mean,
people knew who she was, but like, she was in like The Color Purple, and then like a couple other things, and then like I think this movie kind of made her a star. But like she must have been. I mean, I don't know. I can't really entirely explain it, but like I think I know her from this movie. I think I grew up, and like that's the reason I think of like that's the reason I like her is this movie. But also like she was in Ghost around the same time, but like I wasn't watching Ghost when I was a kid.
No.
And she's great in Ghost.
Probably
I love that
weren't watching
movie.
The Color Purple either.
No, definitely not. 100% not. I still have never seen it. But like I knew her from the comic relief specials.
Yeah.
Which so like I grew up I didn't realize until a couple years ago that she wasn't really a comedian. She's like a Juilliard trained actor or something.
Is that right?
Yeah. She's like she's like an actor. I for some reason, because like when I was a kid, she was on those comic relief things with Robin Williams, and I was like, oh, she's like a stand-up that became an actor. Like, no, that's not true at all. She's like an actor. But anyway, like I've always been a fan of her. I just like her. I like her energy. I like her presence. I think she's a little miscast in this movie.
I think so too.
Her character should be a little trashier. I think Whoopi Goldberg she has a little bit too much class to play this part.
Yes.
But also I love her in it. I don't care.
Right. It's like she seems like the type of person who would know where the line is and not to cross it. And you almost want to see someone fucking cross that line.
Right. But it is a Disney movie. I would like to see the PG-13 or R-rated movie.
You want to see the
Verhoeven, the one with the nudity that enhances the music.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think actually Verhoeven did make a nun movie called Benedetta or something like that. So maybe we just need to check that out.
It was on the short list for this episode.
Right.
This kind of hardly gets into the religious aspect of being a nun, though. Like they mention God and Jesus and stuff, like, but it pretty much just in the songs.
Yes.
These nuns do want to like get out into the community and like help people. They want to make the neighborhood better.
Yeah. Although it does perpetuate the nuns just want to have fun notion that we get in, not just this movie, but it's
a little bit, yeah. But I think that's kind of like at the beginning. They're like, let's go out and play the jukebox and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think when they're like doing the neighborhood outreach, I think they're just genuinely happy to be talking to other people, and and I think I really believe that these nuns want to help the neighborhood.
Yes.
I buy it. I totally buy it.
Right.
And it has some there's some good lessons here, one of which is, the line where I think it's Maggie Smith says to Whoopi, she's like, God has brought you here. Take the hint.
Yeah.
And you don't have to believe in God to think that's a good message, to be like, listen, This is where you are. Fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
And so they're able to work in some religious aspects of this movie, but there's not a lot of religion in the movie.
No.
They do get the Pope in, which I think the Pope coming to their concert at the end it's just too ridiculous to not be awesome.
Yeah. It very much says we're not taking religion too seriously.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Again, I love music in a movie. This is a great use of music. I don't think there's a ton of it. You get a lot at the beginning, the first 5 minutes, and then they kind of sprinkle in some songs as it goes. But I think it's if you like to see people singing, if you like to see choirs and stuff, I think this is, they do some really great versions of these songs.
Yes.
It's not. I don't think it's Whoopi singing those songs though, right?
But I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not really sure. I didn't look it up. So I admit it.
Yeah.
I give this movie 4 stars. Not quite a 5-star movie for me.
Okay.
I'm a sucker for music.
Boy, I don't know what I give this because I have rewatched it, but I don't want to rewatch it anymore.
Fair. That's fair.
I feel like I've given it the attention it deserves, and I'm probably gonna not revisit. But I would say it's worth checking out if you haven't seen it, and if you've only even seen it once, give it another rewatch.
It's definitely worth a rewatch.
Yeah,
but it also has songs that I like. It has oldies songs, like doo-wop type stuff.
Sure.
And they turn it into choir songs, and there's some genuinely good singing in this movie.
Oh yeah.
So I dig it. So I give it 4 stars. I'm putting it on the shelf this week. I found a Letterboxd user who agrees with me on the 4-star review. Her name is Adelaide.
Okay.
And she said, I hate to say it, but Catholicism was making some points in this movie.
Well, yeah, that's a positive takeaway.
Yeah, which we're okay with.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, if you haven't seen Sister Act and you like to see some nuns singing, it's a fun time.
Yeah,
not quite 85 minutes, but it's
maybe you got some kids at home and you're not ready to put the prophecy on for them.
Yeah. This is one of those everybody welcome movies.
Oh, for sure.
You have 4 generations of people in a room, and you want to put something on the TV. This will please a lot of people.
For sure. All right. Well, great final pick. I'm going to round things out with my last choice from 2017. And the movie is called First Reformed, from the Reduce, Reuse, Recycle section of the store. Back of the box. A pastor of a small church in upstate New York starts to spiral out of control after a soul-shaking encounter with an unstable environmental activist and his pregnant wife. There's no tagline. This back of the box is one long sentence. I think it kind of scratches the surface of what's going on here. But if you weren't getting enough religion out of Shiva Baby, First Reformed is here to make up for it. A little more context. So Ethan Hawke stars as the reverend of a small historic church. It's referred in the film as a tourist church, even though it very much is still functional. They're still
not a lot of people go.
Yeah, only a few attendees, even though they hold mass here. Hawke's character is a man who became a priest after losing his son in the Iraq War. This led to his divorce and then the decision to commit himself to the church. So from there, we learn he's undergoing a crisis of faith, something that's furthered by his experience counseling an environmental activist. This is a Paul Schrader movie, and Schrader is most known for his writing credits, he penned classics like Taxi Driver, Last Temptation of Christ.
All of his movies are about a dude going through a crisis of faith of some sort.
Absolutely.
It's all about like just a dude going through some shit.
Yes. Yeah. First Reformed, there are a lot of comparisons to this and Taxi Driver, but you're right. It's
not a lot of like team ups in his movie.
No.
It's always like a guy is going through something by himself.
Yes. And that is exactly what you get here. I would say this is maybe a little bit more somber, maybe more mature, for lack of a better term, than Taxi Driver. But it almost feels like Schrader looked back at Travis Bickle and was like, all right, let's try it again. Maybe this time with more darkness.
All of his movies are like a riff on Taxi Driver.
Right.
It's like, what about that, but this?
Yes. So alongside Ethan Hawke, we get Amanda Seyfried and the late, great Cedric the Entertainer in a decidedly uncomedic performance. But Ethan Hawke is the star of this. As customers know by now, I'm quite the Ethan Hawke fan.
Yeah, we're gonna have to run some stats. You brought Ethan Hawke to the table quite a bit.
I know. I'm a big fan of Ethan Hawke, and
as you should be.
I'll take a break from recommending his films, but he's certainly not afraid to take on ambitious roles and some challenging characters. The part that he plays as Reverend Toller in First Reformed is, I think, a real triumph. He's fucking good in this film, and it's a challenging part.
It goes places I was not expecting.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
So why did I choose this? We talked a little bit about Crisis of Faith with the Prophecy, but this really is one of my favorite takes on a religious theme, because religion is a subject that's full of unknowns, and the idea of faith quite literally means you need to believe in this concept without evidence, in the absence of science and against all odds. So, when characters are challenged by that, I'm paying attention, and that's we get a lot of that here. Well, it seems like at first glance this is a story about a guy who isn't getting what they need from their faith. I think it's really about somebody who is finally finding something that he can believe in the way that he should be believing in God and religion. It's definitely a story about hope and despair. I'm also all in for a movie that isn't afraid to show someone who is supposed to be completely committed to religion and suffering through the realization that religion has failed the world he's living in. That's a big subject, but it's compelling.
But then Cedric the Entertainer is like, well, like, says who?
Right.
And he has a point. He's like, how do you know that like this isn't just part of it? And he has a good point.
He does have a good point.
If you think God has a plan, like, how do you think that this isn't part of it?
Right. Anyone you see the atheists arguing with the Christians, and there's a lot of prove it language.
Right.
like show me why this is true, and they delve into that in an interesting way here without pitting non-believers against believers. It's more like believers and believers, but in different sides of that same coin.
But then when it comes down to just like what you believe, then it doesn't, like, guess whatever if your beliefs change, then guess what? Like, the status quo has changed.
The status quo has changed.
I like how when it comes to religion, I think this movie does a good job of showing that I don't want to say it's a trope, but it's like the good priests.
Right.
And this is true in real life. It's true in movies. Like when priests are like just good at comforting people and talking to people through things. I've noticed in real life, like no matter what you think of religion, like whatever they're teaching these priests in whatever school they go to, or pastors or whatever they are, like that is part of the skill. Like sometimes you just have to be like, listen, like shit happens, and that's kind of what they're saying most of the time. But they have a way of talking that like that is a skill that like maybe isn't religious, but it's part of the training for whatever they're doing.
I'm glad you brought that up because, near the beginning of this movie, in the first act, we get to see that conversation between Hawke's character and the environmental activist, who is clearly not a religious person and struggling with just what's happening to the world that he lives in. And I was half expecting for Ethan Hawke to try and like convert this person, but it was not about that. It was like, let's just look at the thing that you're struggling with from a different angle and try to find some hope.
It's a different version of therapists.
Yes.
You know, it's almost like, I would like to talk to somebody like this as long as they didn't like start bringing up God.
Right. Yeah. I agree. There are some bold decisions that Paul Schrader makes with this movie, and I'm all in for each and every one of them, including the ending, which, as much as I want to talk about it, I think it really deserves to be seen along the 108 minutes that precede the last 5. But it's
I don't know what I think about it.
I really like it.
I don't know if I was let down by it or I don't really know.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And this movie, in a few instances, takes a turn from where you expect it to go. I think, at a certain point, you start to see where this character is headed. But in spite of that, it isn't, I think, wholly predictable in terms of the
I don't know that, I guess, without even saying what it is, like, I'm not sure it was completely justified. It was like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, you definitely don't.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. Again, another movie that deserves a rewatch to unpack some things.
Yeah, this is definitely... I wasn't sure that I wanted to rewatch this after the first time I saw it, but it lingers. And I think over time, it invites you back. And every time, I think it gets a little bit better. Critics and audiences both love this. The screenplay earned Schrader an Academy Award nomination. It's got a 4.0 on Letterboxd. 17% of viewers agree with my 5-star rating, including Karen H., who said, truly fucked how good this movie is. So I would say give it some time, give it a watch if you haven't seen it. But it's pretty powerful.
I forgot to do all my stats this week.
That's all right.
On the ratings and stuff. But next week I'll be back.
Percentages of people agree with you.
Yes, there's people that agree with me.
Right.
Definitely, none of those numbers are 0. I promise you.
I'd be curious if I have any. I'd be curious what movie I've rated with the lowest number of people who agree with me.
Well, actually, just going off the top of my head, I think Red State's around 3 stars on Letterboxd.
Okay.
I think Wicker Man's around 4. I think Sister Act is around 3.4.
There you go. All right. All that sounds believable.
Do you have faith in my Letterboxd numbers? Do you have faith?
I'm willing.
Do you believe without evidence?
I'm willing to believe, yeah.
Without evidence,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Nicely done. Rob, prayers were answered. Once again, we delivered a stellar selection of films to the holiest of shelves in our store, the staff recommendation shelf. The 6 religious movies we chose are Red State, The Prophecy, The Wicker Man, Shiva Baby, Sister Act, and First Reformed.
If you like websites, go to rewindvideopod.com where you can drop us a line, get on our mailing list, or find us on social media.
Next time, in the words of REM, we are losing our religion, and in its place, we'll be devoting our attention to the elements. Not hydrogen, oxygen, or lead, but earth, wind, water, and fire.
All the good ones.
Perhaps there's a Captain Planet movie that I can pluck for.
I didn't even think about that.
I mean, right?
Sounds great.
In the meantime, feel free to stop by the counter for a movie to watch. And as always, we will see you next time.
Be kind, recommend. Hail Satan. Religious way.